Laudetur Jesus Christus, Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Friday, November the 20th, Nobel Peace Laureate Muhammad Yunus addresses participants at the Economy of Francesco event.
And civilians caught in the conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray state flee to neighboring countries.
Pope Francis encourages Latin American seminarians to cure the world of the evil that afflicts it. In the Vatican, I'm Linda Bordoni.
And I'm Father Benedict Mayaki. The Economy of Francesco online event continued into its second day today, with participants focusing on how questions of finance, economics, sociology and ecology are all interrelated. The day's keynote speaker was Muhammad Yunus, a Bangladeshi economist and social entrepreneur. The 2006 Nobel Peace Prize laureate developed the idea of microfinance, which gives low-income individuals access to small business loans to pursue their dreams.
For me, the pandemic was a good occasion to see what is happening to the world, because it revealed all the weaknesses, all the ugliness of the existing system. One of the things it really revealed globally, the people who were at the margin of existence, those who were daily income earners, who were earning by their own efforts, hanging on to their livelihoods which can only support themselves, suddenly, globally, they fell from their hanging at the margin. They became poor, they don't have any food, they don't have any income, they don't have any livelihood, and that's almost half the population of the entire world. In a matter of weeks, this happened. So this is what it does, because the system is built in a way where finance is facilitating all the go in one direction, going to the top. Today we have built a world where 1% of the population of the world owning 99% of the wealth of the world. So finance is responsible for that, the way we have designed it, and the concepts which is pushing that finance in that direction are responsible for it. Because the only thing we know in our business, in our financial world, in our business world, is a maximization of profit. That's the only religion we have. Maximization of profit, that's the only goal, and that maximization do not consider anything else. It doesn't look for the world, it doesn't look for the benefit of other people, it doesn't look for whether it's safe for the planet or not. It's the only thing you do, you have to maximize profit.
That was Muhammad Yunus, the winner of the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize.
Aid agencies attached to the United Nations have called for an immediate temporary ceasefire in Ethiopia and the setting up of a humanitarian corridor. Nathan Morley tells us more.
The United Nations hope the corridors will enable access to civilians after 2 weeks of fighting. They're currently hoping to raise $200 million to cover food, shelter and other urgent needs. The UN is planning for up to 200,000 refugees over the next 6 months. Babar Balok, who's a spokesman for the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, said a temporary ceasefire with immediate effect was needed to allow humanitarian corridors to be established. Meanwhile, aid agencies are scaling up the humanitarian response in eastern Sudan, where more than 30,000 people fleeing the fighting have arrived over the past fortnight. Will Carter, the country director for the Norwegian Refugee Council, said people were sleeping out in the open. He said there were no tents, just blankets, and some food like porridge and water was available, but there were no toilets, showers or health services. In a separate development, forces from Ethiopia's Tigray region have fired rockets into the city of Bahir Dar, but no casualties or damage were reported. International rights group Amnesty International has documented a mass killing of civilians by what it says were Tigrayan forces on November the 9th and 10th, and refugees fleeing the conflict in Sudan have said they were targeted because they were Tigrayan. For Vatican News, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
At least 16 people have been killed and hundreds of others arrested in Uganda. Tension arose as security personnel tried to quell protest triggered by the arrest of two presidential candidates campaigning ahead of the country's elections slated for January 2021. The protest erupted in the capital, Kampala, and in a few other cities after news spread of the arrest of Robert Kyangulanyi, also known as Bobby Wine, a pop star turned politician and subsequently presidential candidate of the National Unity Platform.
Kyangulanyi was arrested on Wednesday while campaigning in eastern Uganda after authorities accused him of flouting anti-COVID-19 precautionary measures by holding mass rallies in the course of his campaign. News sources also reported the arrest of the presidential candidate of the Forum for Democratic Change Party. He was, however, released after a few hours. Tensions had been building in the country over the political campaigns, with authorities announcing that no more than 200 people could be gathered due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Local officials in Cagayan and Isabela.
We apologize for that. A Philippine diocese is appealing for aid for people who are in desperate need of clean and drinking water following last week's typhoon Vamco. Robin Gomes has the story.
Local officials in Cagayan and Isabela provinces of the Philippines consider the recent flooding in their areas as the worst they have experienced in 4 decades. One of the biggest contributors to the flooding, they believe, is the discharge of water from Magath Dam, one of the largest dams in the country. An official of Magath Dam said the high volume of rain brought by Typhoon Vamco forced them to open 7 water gates to prevent the reservoir from overflowing and possibly breaching. The mud water has resulted in a drop in clean water supply in the region. Many residents, including Manila's 14 million population, are being helped by rotational water supply. Please give us drinking water, as the water available in our region is not safe to drink, appealed Father Carlito Sarte, director of the Social Action Center of Ilagan Diocese. We need clean water for thousands of residents in the province in evacuation centers, he said. On Tuesday, he appealed to water refilling stations in his parish in Santiago City to donate bottled water. Father Sarte also expressed concern that the lack of water in shelters, evacuation centers and hospitals may help spread the coronavirus. He said frequent washing of hands is essential in containing the virus. The situation is still hard, he said. You can manage for some days without food, but not without water. People need to maintain hygiene by washing their hands to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. We really need water, he said. According to the government's health department, COVID cases in the Philippines spiked due to delays in transferring test samples to medical centers due to damaged roads and power outages. I am Robin Gomes.
The United Nations Human Rights Agency has condemned the arrest of 3 members of a top rights group in Egypt. The head of the Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights was detained on Thursday, days after 2 of his colleagues. They're all being held for alleged links with the terror group. Dozens of activists have been arrested under President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, but Egypt has repeatedly denied accusations of human rights violations. Sisi led the military overthrow of his democratically elected predecessor, Mohamed Morsi, in 2013, following protests against his rule.
As COVID-19 impacts the world, the fishing industry is also affected. The prefect of the Dicastery of Promoting Integral Human Development says now is the time to act to improve the living and working conditions of fishers. His words came in a message to mark the World Fisheries Day, which is observed on the 21st of November. Lydia O'Kane reports.
At the heart of Cardinal Peter Turkson's message for World Fisheries Day is the impact the COVID-19 pandemic is having on the fisheries sector. The Cardinal notes that due to government's strategic responses to the coronavirus, such as social distancing, the closure of fishing markets and reduced patronage of hotels and restaurants, this has created challenges for the sale of fresh fish and related products. In this current situation, he points out, fishing, fish processing, consumption and trade have steadily decreased. Cardinal Turkson also draws attention to other chronic problems which bedevil the industry. These challenges, he continues, which constitute fisheries crime, are the problems of overfishing and illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing which continue around the world under different flags and by groups who dispose of powerful fleets and are better resourced. Another area highlighted by the prefect is that of working conditions for fishers, especially at a time of a global pandemic. He goes on to say that fishers at sea have been affected by by the closure of fishing ports and the impossibility of making crew changes. Additionally, the lack of personal protective equipment has increased the risk of transmitting the virus because fishers work in restricted and enclosed spaces, he says. In his message, Cardinal Turkson underlines that the issues of human trafficking and forced labour still remain. The prefect describes the path to full protection of human and labour rights of all categories of fishers as a long and winding road. Yet again, he says, we raise our voice to call for a renewed effort from international organisations and governments to strengthen their commitment to implement legislations to improve the living and working conditions of fishers and their families and to toughen their fight against forced labour and human trafficking. I'm Lydia O'Kane.
And finally, Pope Francis today received members of the Pontifical Latin American College in Rome in a private audience. He reminded them of the richness that their culture has brought and can bring to Christian communities globally and to the world in its entirety. Francesca Merlo tells us more.
Although history has separated our peoples, it has not destroyed the root that unites them in that great work that was the evangelization of America. With these opening words, Pope Francis greeted the entire community of the Pontifical Latin American College and explained that it is on this premise that the college was born, as a commitment that would unite all our particular churches and at the same time open them to the universal church in the city of Rome. Pope Francis went on to note that this particular experience of communion and openness is a great challenge and can help heal the world. The Pope then explained that the Latin American presence worldwide is one that has brought huge benefits to Christian communities globally. This is what your formation should be about, continued the Pope, sowing the word generously, as God sows. There are 3 concrete points of action, said the Pope: opening the door of your heart and the hearts of those who listen to you, to pitch in and call others to do so with you for the good of all, to heal this world of the great evil that afflicts it and that the pandemic has brought to light. Be shepherds, continued the Pope, shepherds that fight against a culture of discard, social segregation, distrust and prejudice because of race, culture or faith, so that a feeling of fraternity may prevail over any difference. Cure the world of the great evil that afflicts it, continued Pope Francis. The pandemic has put us in front of the great evil that afflicts our society. Globalization has overcome the borders, but not the minds and hearts. The virus is spreading unchecked and we are unable to respond together. The world continues to close its doors, rejecting dialogue and collaboration, refusing to open itself sincerely to common commitment for a good that reaches everyone without distinction. The cure of this evil must come from below, concluded the Pope, before praying that the Virgin Mary, the Guadalupana, patroness of Latin America, may sustain hope in the midst of so many uncertainties, so that each member may second the call of God and be witness of the human fraternity that is born of being children of God. I am Francesca Merlo.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News.
For more on these and other stories, and to hear this broadcast as a podcast, go to our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. You can also catch the latest updates on our Facebook page or on Twitter.
Our thanks go to Mario Scaton in studio in the Vatican. I'm Linda Bordoni.
And I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.